welcome to Review the Light. Today we're going to be taking a look at the new Imalent DDT40. But really quick, if you haven't yet, go ahead and click this link right up here to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Keep up to date with the latest reviews. This one up here to follow me on Facebook. You can do the same there. And once the full review is completed, I'll be putting a link to that in the description down below the video here. That will include all sorts of great things like runtime graphs, output charts, beam shots, spectral analysis, all the fun stuff. So be sure to check that out if you have any other questions about the light. So the DDT40 is a new light by Imalent, and Imalent is one of the most interesting brands out there, I think, at the moment, because they're doing some pretty interesting things with flashlights. So I'll show you each side of the box really quick here. If you want to look at anything in detail, you can pause it, but the box is pretty simple here. I'll open it up. So we've got some foam padding, and then here's the instruction manual. This is going to be pretty important to keep around because there's a lot that this light can do, and you're going to want to be able to refer to that, and I'll keep that out there for myself. A warranty card, a couple of accessories here. We got 2 spare O-rings and a spare cover for one of the touch interfaces. The light itself here, I'll set that aside for just a second. And at the bottom here we have a wall adapter for the charger and the remote control. So we'll get the box out of the way so we can look at everything else. Okay, so the DDT40, here you can see the light itself. It's pretty large, so you look at it in my hand, it's kind of chunky. I can wrap my whole hand around it. Some with small hands, I don't know, you might have a little bit of trouble getting your hand all the way around it if you try and hold it up at the head. But it does fit comfortably in my hand here, and the switches are easy enough to access, each of them while holding it. And also you can, if you hold it in the overhand grip, that's what it looks like there. So it's a fairly large light, but kind of short, stocky build with a kind of a squarish head. So the DDT40 uses 4 XML2 emitters, so you can see those in there. They each have their own reflector. Now each of these reflectors is fairly small, so this light with its 4 different emitters and its 4 separate reflectors that are all fairly small, using the XML2 emitter, that's a high brightness, high efficiency emitter, and it's fairly floody. So that combined with the small reflectors means it's going to be a pretty floody light. It's going to be a lot of light output and fairly floody. It's not going to throw super far except for just by the sheer amount of light that it puts out. So you can see it has kind of this square shaped head, and each reflector has its own bezel here. I believe these are stainless steel, it looks like, and they're fairly well recessed in there, so these are pretty well protected, which I like to see. You can also see around the head some heat dissipation fins here. They're fairly small. The sheer mass of this light is going to do most of the heat dissipation, and it has a lot of surface area just from being large, but those heat dissipation fins, aside from just making it look nice, help move heat out and weight into the air by adding to the surface area. We will examine all these things on the head more in a second. You can see the DDT40 logo right there, Imalent logo here on the other side. The body has some very, very light knurling. Most of the grip is just going to be from all of the various features on the head of the light and on the body. The knurling doesn't add too much to it with how light it is. And then on the tail you can see it's just a flat tail, and it just stands upright pretty easily like that. So you open it up, it opens up real smoothly. Some of these larger lights seem like they can be hard to open, but this one takes a lot of rotations, but the thread action is really smooth there, and I appreciate that. Here you can see the batteries. It takes 4 18650 size batteries, and they just drop right into the body of the light. It's kind of I like the design they have here. Most of the time, if they don't use a battery carrier and they just drill slots into the body, it can be pretty heavy. But the way Imalent has it designed here is it's still mostly hollow on the inside, but you also don't have the battery carrier, so that it remains pretty sturdy. The battery carriers can tend to break sometimes, or kind of be a weak point in a design. So you can see just with the way they kind of have it mostly hollow, but with these that post in the middle and these kind of grooves, or excuse me, these ridges along the side to hold the batteries in place. They managed to keep the weight down, but still not have to use a battery carrier, so I like that design. You can see there's springs at the bottom to make connection with the negative terminal of the battery. That helps to prevent them from prevent the batteries from getting damaged if you drop the light, which is a great bonus. So I'll drop some batteries in there. You can also see it follows a convention with the negative terminal hitting the negative, or hitting the spring and being towards the rear of the light, but it's also marked which way to insert your battery. So I'll drop that in there. There's the 4 batteries. And here's what the head looks like. Now, the positive terminal of your battery is going to need to connect to this ring. So some flat top batteries may have trouble making connection with that ring. It's going to be close. Your flat top batteries might, if they extend at all beyond the wrapper, they should be able to make connection with this ring. If they don't, then you're going to need button top batteries to make it. You need to have at least a little bit of a extension of the battery beyond the wrapper in order to make connection with that ring there. And as you can see, the batteries are all stationary and the ring is stationary, so the positive terminals of your batteries are just going to be kind of sliding around that ring as you're tightening the light near the end there. Also, I'll give you a close-up on those threads if my camera will focus. It looks to me like they're square cut, and they're definitely anodized, and like I mentioned earlier, they're greased, so the threads are going to hold up for quite a long time. Those are well-made threads. Alright, there we go. We got a little flash when that batteries make connection there at the end, so it's a good sign that we're good to go. Now, this review is going to be fairly long, and I'm going to try to cover most of the features of the DDT40. If I miss something, I apologize, because it has quite a few features. I'm going to try and cover most of the features here in this video. So, let's see, where should I start? The main switch for the light is here on this side. You can see there's also a post for connecting a tripod. I've tried that out. It fits a standard tripod really well. You'll see later on when I take it outside, it just fits right onto my regular tripod. That's good. This here is the connection point for the wall charger. You can plug it right in there and it'll charge up your batteries. You want to make sure you're only using 18650 batteries that charge to a maximum of 4.2 volts. Depending on how they're labeled, they might be given a nominal voltage of 3.6 or 3.7 volts. Those are the same kind of batteries, but that's the only kind of batteries you ever want to charge in here, because that's the way that the charger is designed, and that's where it plugs in right there. And here's the main switch. So to turn the light on, I just click that switch. And to turn it back off, I hold down on the switch for about half a second. Over here on the side, on either side, you can see this little apparatus here. This is the infrared receiver. So the remote control has a little infrared light here, just like your remote control for your TV, and that's how it signals the receiver. So indoors, it can kind of bounce around a little bit, and you may not have to point it directly at it, same as your TV remote. But when you're outdoors, if there's not anything for the light to bounce off of anywhere near, you're going to need a direct line of sight between the remote, the light on the remote, and the receiver here on this side or on the other side of the light. So that means possibly standing to the side of the light, or I found if you're directly behind it, you can usually kind of hold your hand out to the side and reach it. But if there's nothing for the light to bounce off of nearby, then you're going to need a direct line of sight from the remote to the side of that receiver right there. So also you can see there's a button here on each side of the light. Now these buttons do separate things, we'll get into that in a minute, and there's also a floodlight on each side, and these floodlights are identical. They're just floodlights, and they are diffused behind these kind of frosted lenses there. So, oh, and then this side here, opposite their main switch, has the mode control buttons, and we'll get to those. So, let's turn it on again. Looks like we're on in maximum brightness here, and if you can read that screen, it's saying we're at 3600 lumens, so I think the max is somewhere near, yeah, it's 5180 lumens is what it claims to be the maximum, so my batteries probably aren't quite fully charged. And you can also see it has kind of a bluish tint. That's just going to be from the white balance of my camera. You can see the real tint when we take it outside later. But again, just a click to this main switch turns the light on, and then oh, I had my finger on the decrease button there, so that's why it got dim all of a sudden. Over here on this other side, you have see the kind of a minus and a plus symbol here. The minus towards the rear of the light decreases the output, and I'm at the minimum here now, which is about 5 lumens it's saying. And then if I put my thumb on this plus sign, I just hold down and it steadily gets brighter and brighter, kind of in increments, so I can either tap it or I can hold down on it. And it's a pretty smooth transition here. Now, as I'm pressing the button on the side of the light, and you can see it's really floody. Like on my camera, I don't think you can even see the hot spot. It's just an incredibly floody beam. There you can kind of see that it is, there's a hot spot there, but the light's bouncing around so much in my box here that you can see it's just an incredibly floody beam, and you can get a better idea of what the beam looks like if you check out the beam shots in the review or the video, the second end of the video here. But as you can see, as I go up, as I'm holding down on the plus sign, the brightness is increasing, and you can see that little bar kind of goes to the side. Now this is different than previous Imalent lights where you're actually swiping up and down on the display. So that's something to note. But here I'm in the middle and it says it's about 2400 lumens. I keep going up. Let's see what it says here. This says 4000 lumens. So that's how you adjust the brightness. And that's of the main mode. So the other thing you can do here is press the switch on the right as you're looking at the display, and it shows you some other things. So it's saying my batteries are at 4.03 volts. That's probably why I'm not getting up to the maximum 5000 lumen output. If I press it again, it appears to be a compass. Now, I haven't actually tried this out outside yet, but it looks like it's got a compass built in, which is kind of a nice feature. I'm going to have to test that out later to see how accurate that compass is. And then it's got a temperature, both in Fahrenheit and Celsius there, if you can read that. Then I press it one more time and it turns the display off if you want to conserve power. And then again, it goes back to the lumens, displaying how many lumens you're at, approximately. And I'll be testing the accuracy of that in the full review. So if one thing, I do tend to bump the mode buttons as I'm handling the light. So what you can do is, so if you hold, I'll turn it back up so you can see the effect a little bit better. Okay, so if you hold down on this switch, it turns the light off, and then a single click turns it back on. Holding down turns it off. But if it's on, let me dim it again. If it's on and I just click the switch, the main switch, it goes into lockout, and then pressing these buttons won't change the brightness. So you can avoid that problem if you keep bumping the brightness buttons like I do. And then another click will turn it back on so you can adjust it again. And then holding down on the button, you can turn the light on. You can turn the light back off. So when it's on, I showed you if you click this switch on the right, it changes the display. If you click this switch over here on the left, then we're going to shift to flood mode. So you can see my flood emitters on the side are lighting up now. And I can adjust those the same way. They don't get as bright as the 4 from the front because obviously there's only 2 of them, and they probably get less current anyway, I'm guessing, but I can adjust their current here. Up and adjust their power there up and down, and it looks like I'm getting about 12,000 lumens maximum, and then if I go back down, back to 5 lumens, and then from there again I can still press the switch on the right to see those various settings there, but those are the floodlights on either side. So if I press the switch on the left again, I go back to the front being on and not the side switch. So when you're just controlling with these switches, you're just switching back and forth between that. So the other thing I can do is use the remote, and I will demonstrate this more once we get outside, but just so you can see the remote now, it's got the on and off switch, and you can see right now I'm not obviously pointing it at either of the receivers, but it's just bouncing around in my light box here. So this switch turns it on and off. Now if you have the light off from the main switch, then there's no power flowing through the receivers, so clicking this button doesn't do anything. So to use the remote, you first have to turn the light on with a switch, and then you can turn it on and off with the remote. And it's kind of just in a standby mode right now, waiting for instructions from the remote. When it's on, I can press the mode button to switch to the floodlights, and then there's also a strobe feature, and then a beacon mode, and then an SOS, and then I'm back to the full power. I can also turn the brightness up and down with these buttons, and you'll see this outside, but it's not quite as smooth of a transition between modes when I'm using the buttons on the remote for some reason. So that's the remote. Alright, so this, like I said, this has been a long video. Stick around for just a little bit more and we will take it outside and give it a shot in the dark. I apologize, I forgot one more thing I wanted to demonstrate in here before we take it outside, and that is the plug. So I've got this plugged into the wall on one side, and then here you can see I just insert this into its hole there. And then you can see this picture of the battery charging, and it tells you the voltage that it's at while it's charging. So that's the charging through the built-in port. So alright, now without further ado, we will take it outside. Thanks. Alright, here we have the new Imalent DDT40 out here in the backyard, and we're going to go ahead and fire it up and give it a shot. So there it is. You can see I've got it mounted on my old tripod over there. I'll shine some light on it real quick so you can see it. There you go. It's mounted on my old junky tripod. So it's a little bit back heavy. The mounting is on the very front of the light, so it's a little bit heavy in the back, but even on my old junky tripod, it's really stable. It's firm enough that it's not going anywhere, so I'm not worried about it. So the weight issue doesn't seem to be too big. So I'm using the remote here. I found that because the sensors are on the side, it makes sense, and that I found this the best place to control it is kind of from off to the side. So here it is. Indoors, I found the light bounces off enough things that you can usually control it from straight behind, but I'm kind of off to the side here. I'll show you. My arm is kind of over here, controlling it on and off. So that's just the on and off switch. From there, I can also make it go down in brightness if I hit the right button. There we go. And you can see, like I mentioned, the brightness jumps are a little bit larger steps here when you're going with the remote than when you're using the pad on the light. Not sure why that is, but see, it's still on, but you can't really see very much. I'll go on over there. You may be able to see on my hand from there that it is on right now. It's dimmest mode. It's pretty dim. So, alright, and I'll just crank it back up. And yes, using the remote does take a little bit longer. It's a little bit slower and jerkier, the steps. But you can get the idea of it there. So there, it's brightened back up. Alright, and then I'll go ahead and switch to the side, hitting the mode button here on the remote. I'm on the side here. So because of the light pointed back here, you can't see a lot of the flood, but it's lit up the art pretty good with its flood here. And then I'll dim it. And there it is on the dimmest. And brighten it again. There we go. Then if I hit the mode switch again, we go to the strobe mode here. And it seems to be a variable speed strobe. Hit the mode again and it goes to this beacon. Hit mode again. So I didn't register that here. There we go. Now we've got SOS mode. Then hit mode again and we're back to the regular output. So this has been the Imalent DDT40, remote controlled from a few feet away, and you've seen it in action. So if you like the review, go ahead and don't forget to click subscribe right up here in the top right corner. Follow me on YouTube. Then subscribe to me on Facebook here in the top left. And if you have any questions, be sure to check out the full review that I'll put at the link in the description below. Thanks, and have a great night.